pieces of beings in the street. It could always be bullshit. Sad, to be glad, to be gone. The way to be, the way you are, when you're dancing. And this is my abbreviation of the Lord's Prayer. Bless God, as above, so below, the art of heaven. This is Master Candido. Candido is a conguero who turned 90, well it says so here. Master Candido. Shaking hands with Candido, conguero, beautiful, cool brown hands, on this day of his 90th birthday, celebrating extensions, master of congas, playing three with relaxed mastery, showman and scholar. He would play 5 drums at a time. Now he kisses each drum one by one, showing no favor to any. Then he humps his drums gladly, saying he always keeps his drums happy. They are responsible for the roof over his head and the rice and beans in his belly. 1999. She said Pollyanna wasn't that bad. The homeless basketball league of People's Park. Those long, low avenues, headlights coming at you, red tails, lights diminishing, the double yellow line of infinity. Nobody home in California. Was party, was grief, was party. Bitch motherfucker. All of Harlem smells like black flag, says David Hammons, smiling pussy. And then again, there's always LA. The crotch shot of western luminescence, the open hair, pink and the white-like skin, the accent on the legs as in the act of birth or love of pure wanton idleness, the white pussy conference, kosher cigarettes, the fatigue of the gender, the men and women's bodies are caught in the fatigue of the gender, the systems of whiteness, messianic trance, vortex of translation. In the music of the blacks, the onomatopoeia of the form, we call it reading Mice magazine on sleep deprivation, gender and race speeches, the faggots in vague Boys Town, the wolf is in the house, the bitch shot the motherfucker, generic smoke, the long con, the god of technology, organic rats from Ohio, in the arms of an immense black woman who sits in a rocking chair, suckling the old man Rockefeller in his 90th year, black suit and black top hat, posthumous slavery and zombieism, a hypodermic needle filled with solitude, twilight skyline, Coca-Cola in the detritus. She was just on the scene trying to get into something so she could struggle to get out of it. Slaves to sunshine. They're in love with the weather. They'll do anything to stay in California. The millennial blues, postmoderns, greatest hits. Bankers revolt, bankers revolution, revolted bankers, the entire Western Guild, publicists, bankers, journalist bankers, politician bankers, small town bankers, United States of Bankers, Global Banker International. Banker revolt, classic graphic white gentleman, silk top hat, crisp white shirt, gleaming black tuxedo and shoes, dash into the fray. Big bank broke beyond hallowed institutional interiors, wood personified, hand polished by Uncle Tom facade, beyond rooftops, neighborhood serve, Ned Alliance, neighborhood surveillance centers, high-rise ledges, paper towers, stairways of smooth ancient marble, mafia cement foundation, vaulted ceilings parallel, giant sheets of bulletproof glass reaching looming high in the sky. Bernie Madoff was a banker, a banker's banker. Regulator and innovator, banker in progression to revolution. Bernie began as a minority among the self-effacing figures of the South Florida Country Club circa 1950. For those of the Jewish persuasion, shunned by WASP of the era, near white model minorities who are also inhabitants of the secret book of Bernie. His base, Bernie base. Bernie can get you in. Bernie, get me in. A smiling Bernie. All right already. Confident yet modest. A nice guy who knows money has no borders. Self-effacing model minority, architect and inhabitant of the secret and mystic book of Bernie. Bernie can get you in if he wants you in. It was a favor, a good deed, a mitzvah. Bernie's mitzvah. Bernie, white-haired tendrils above a black top coat, looking not unlike George Washington, stationed under a Park Avenue canopy, five-star general of continuous worldwide revolution. Prophet versus sucker, public lockout, private banks, transition seemingly seamless, now in real politic top game movie, moxie apex, asymmetrical fascism, public finance corporate takeover, banker bailout, public debt, denied the rumor of credit denial, Ponzi globalization, fear leveraged by fear, Egyptian dynastic analytics, counterfactual, counter-cyclicals, high-velocity derivatives accelerate moral hazard for a hierarchy of suckers. Bernie's book vanished, but not vanquished. It's called the African Burial Ground called Tribeca. The kid had walked these streets before, surrounded by the rivers that meet upper New York Bay at the tip of Manhattan, China blue pants and bohemian tweed, Mayakovsky hat the color of Keith, never knowing his footfalls often echoed in the forgotten graves of his ancestors. The old produce market was absent of trucks on Sunday, 5 Points as it was called way before then, solemn city hall slightly south, where the seat of New York City government lies upon the graves of the African dead. Those who would be American by decree beside the landfill of the old Collect Pond, now the courthouse site, now Chinatown, now Tribeca. The Dutch West India Company chain of New World trading posts, working their way by trial and error through the ethics of forced labor to give way to the articles of capitulation of the English, and then the Royal Africans Company docking priority for its slave ships in 1665. The Duke of York's inevitable jackpot payoff, 1711, when the slave market became the biggest business on Wall Street. Sarah Penn's Now Curie on Franklin and West Broadway. Black woman humble in a museum disguised as a shop. Among the rare treasures of Africa, Asia, South America, offering healing for free from the powers of antiquity. In the late 20th century, Knob Kerry, once among the lofts of Tribeca demagogues, Newhouse, De Niro, Kennedy Jr., now disappeared like the African dead, to reappear as relentless as the force of Africa that built the infrastructure of this metropolis of empires. Gil Scott-Heron, soul poet, named after a flying creature whose wingspan seemed designed to negotiate the kind of heavy winds often over waters. He seemed taller than he was, as if he were looking down always from a height. And his arm spans also seemed longer than they were. So then what he encompassed, be it electric keyboard or the microphone at the tip of a mic stand, he was larger than those pieces of hardware as he was larger than the conveyances that brought his voice, music, and words into the nuclear ether that connects us all. And it was his voice, a baritone in song, while in speaking always deeper than he sang. It was not a pretty singing voice, but it was telling. His sound carried upon a wave and was well heard. He often declaimed down a scale in his signature at the end of lines that you would imitate if you wanted to catch an outstanding characteristic of what would be his particular blues, for lack of a better name. But he was a poet indeed, and he would say those poems, whether just with conga or with band, declaiming with the best of the black art school, rhyming like the rappers he would presage, although speaking within and without the music, he was always in the music, that black music, just like that bass and doo-wop became the bass in hip-hop. But he was in the business of show business. Because of his song, because of his hit recording, and whether they have a category for that type of thing in black music, far removed from, say, a Bob Dylan, whose poetry was recognized, though only in song. Bill had two guns and was dexterous with the poetry, or the song, a double threat with either hand. He was quick on the draw and he took no prisoners. But the business of show was tough like a motherfucker, and Gil was tough like that. He made it far into the game and took grace all the left-handed ass backward, and took with grace all the left-handed ass backward kudos the establishment elementarists threw at him, because where he was grounded could never be touched. No one could touch that. He made most of his gigs no matter what shape the world thought he was in. Even now in death, he works just as hard and will finally come to claim the love he always doubted but still believed in. Little Esther sang his song and made him a legend. What else does one become when a legend gives tribute? And Little Esther, as she was called when discovered by Johnny Otis, was so bad she could do diamond washing. After Esther sang him, he was a made man. Living room of San Francisco Street, the living room of Francisco Street, Berkeley, California, overlooking the San Francisco Bay where Gil would sleep on his way to play. The couch in the living room on Francisco. The sliding door as wide as the room, the terrace overlooking the bay. San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, Mount Tamalpais, where Gil would sleep when he came through. I never thought of being a beautiful family, but it was. Mother and father and child home for us and Gil as well. Our beautiful paradise for as long as it was. I had not known until now that time was so-called the beginning of Gil Scott's so-called career. He was a star to us already, and he had been since the beginning of time. It seemed always instantaneous. When he said it, it was like deja vu, that we somehow knew already, although it was he who said it would not be on TV. But he was talking about it, airing it out for public view. We heard it, we were thinking about it, and welcomed the qualification because it collected two concepts, gave them equal billing, and then we knew more than we had known by the nature of the juxt. We talked in an inexpensive space. We talked in an inexpensive motel room off Hollywood Boulevard. We were a small group listening to each other discuss death among the stars and other music. Our music, black music, death traffic honking into the low windows, mono-generic, the same wherever, always, in the business of shows, appearing and touring indeed, as if creatures within acts of showbiz magic performed by some industrial magician. As we were of the business ourselves, indeed undeclared demimondes, just having graduated from the chitlin circuit, by stint of social movement and select assassinations, but nonetheless we still adhere to that so-called tradition by a loyalty sincere, semi-tragic, be it Willie Best, Butterfly McLean, Lady Day, or John Coltrane. The goal was beauty expressed as sublimely as possible for those starved of identity, showing that business appearing via proscenium, radio, or visually retrieved on devices that glowed in the dark. Identity for who one truly was, that revolution, and here we were in the capital of entertainment of the English-speaking world, Los Angeles. Feeling the winds that occurred at a pinnacle or precipice, or at the end of land, facing Japan, due west, the closest way to the east. Hollywood. With remnants of stars are encased in stone, to be walked upon, often trampled by masses as tourists, or tourists as masses. We were in an inelegant motel for the showbiz poor. Hollywood Ghetto Boulevard, a rare place in LA where folks actually walk over star encased in stone, remnant replicas of body parts, extremities of limbs spread on the sidewalk, juxtaposed with bronze stars, and notice an urban ledger as pavement, legend for as long as can be imagined in the style of corporatocracy. The death of stars and the factory of shows, the business of show, death of stars, inevitable result of the mortality of stars, not necessarily those poor stars who often tour virtually alone, facing the forces, dodging consequences, often only by speed alone. Gil would stay with us when he came through Berkeley, appearing indeed a phenomenon on some local stage at first, and it was always beautiful to see him, and he always had something to play of what he was working on or what he needed to hear. Gil leaves us staring at the blank screen of our revolution that has become a mobile device, accompanying us to the crossroads where we stand today. Gil was the sole proprietor of his blues enterprise. Commander Gil Scott-Heron has taken us this far, and now leaves us, job well done, doing the most difficult of the showbiz acts, poetry and blues. Confessional and stark reality, in as much as he would take all that was thrown his way, and still continue to do his thing, and that was being with everything he chose to do, and that was it. Couldn't call him a rebel because he was not reacting to anything outside of what he wanted, and that was pretty much nothing. Consider a roof over his head, and $10 packages of cigarettes, and whatever composition of additional edibles combining to keep body alive and brain firing, and he took other substances as was his choice, and he paid the price, the dues and the bonuses, and that was it. What you saw is all you got unless you heard him play the keyboard and sing his poems, for then you pretty much got it all. Fast food ads that mock the eternal hunger of the poor. This is called Dr. Judy Brown Companion to New Energy. Dr. Judy Brown White, I think her name is Dr. something else. But it's about the disappearing Thomas, the Twin Towers. Seeing what the evidence says, hearing no tales, counter catalogs, sequence channels of reportage, disaster of a lifetime, confronting millions of faces, evidence in front of multitudinous eyes, fires and dust become vapor, rising above unburned paper, cars bursting in air, metal seemingly aglow, centigrade of Fahrenheit, but not molten, not hot. No gas tanks, explosions in seas of roasted cars, flipped as if by magic, tortoises denied by fusion force, dust as vapor, black out at 1/10 of a micron, the size of DNA. The payload of 110 stories, seemingly controlled demo, but no signature, just downward thunder, but no energy impact. 500,000 tons flying away, vapor from dust, total solar eclipse by 1/10 of a micron on the ground that would come to be known as zero.
Right, my glasses on. I'd like to just invoke, that's okay. No. This is a little challenging to read from because it really is a visual book, but I'm going to give it a shot. This is from Neither Wit Nor Gold, from them. And it begins, there's two quotes that begin it. One is, will it be that someday we come to some relation with those who make up our condition, humans, that will not argue their histories as all that they depend upon for relation, or else, more accurately, that what they do is more relevant to all their lives, one by one or all in all, than what they didn't. Robert Creeley. All day long, wearing a hat that wasn't on my head. Jack Kerouac. Rust and time, nor wit nor gold abet the old song's burden. Part prophecy, part longing. The hanging garden, a shadowy dream. The world grows so very old, though once we too were young. Something had happened to the very particles of the substantial, of substance, to the very cup on the dashboard, now not what a cup might have been, the sentences themselves seemingly unable to carry the seed of an untold tale, driving through the words in full force to emerge as told. There was a time we walked these streets without a care, our history within. Late, raining. We glide down past 59th Street across Times Square on Broadway, windows rolled up, the radio on, all quiet on the Western Front. We decide to go to Junior's for cheesecake. From there we come back to the No Name for a nightcap, then over to the Bowery, no one around, Chinatown for a bite, back uptown. A man on the corner, Houston and First Street, watching the traffic heave, the man's eyes moving, slowly speaking, daughter, an unknown man's eyes, unused, closed, hand, paper bag. The late Jack Spicer's work is a miraculous thing. In Shirley Clark's film about Ornette Coleman, the moon looks like a white woman's body with wide pink nipples. In the story of the circumcision, Ornette concludes that male and female exist, but man and woman are. Scarface and Fratricide, Homesick Time, speaks under rocks and says everything I wanted to and couldn't. And the insistence echoed everywhere to renounce dreaming. This boat can take me to a place where I would have made a wooden horse out of ilk eken tree and slashed roans into spears for sake of chivalry. The materials only get more mysterious, her gardenia, any dahlia. In any passage of time, the lights, the blinking lights still thickening her field of vision, sitting there, black hair blowing back against her cheek. I lived those days, the absolute joy of them, the days, I mean. Who does the Queen save, save one? How does her hair fall? All on her shoulders or some? When will knight errant reply her reprieve? There in that lair, ears attuned and eyes adjusted, love solely reflective. Someone said the sun did you in, but I don't think that's true. My heart once broke, and now it's breaking again. When I fell asleep inside you, I thought love would never end. And when you let go in me, we were afloat upon the wide blue sea, me deep in you, and you deep in me. Into this world you come slower or more quickly. Before lighting the kerosene heater on my way to work at the garage, I could always see my breath in the early winter light. There is a plum in the hearts of the dumb. He wanted to appear in the snow, arrived late in evening, wondered from where he had come, and if this was the place he was supposed to go. I saw the story told me about me that I was telling myself wasn't true, but it seemed there was no release, it just went on. So a huge gulf was created, long walks through the ruins, small talk to begin rearranging all the chemistry, thinking the brain would not act one way, only to find out something entirely different was at stake. The memories came in drips and drabs, the faucet just opened and closed quickly, lest the flood overwhelm him. How many times did we play that side? The night in Tunisia, live at the Vanguard, the blue and white labels spinning. Just and frozen, I lost track, wet to a ranting hum, diamond knees, hair black gold, trapped in the rib past dusk, lights out, wheels spinning. It wasn't the daily form George always had me bring on the way to the park, but the Armstrong. Searching the streets for a face, putting a face to time. Love comes back in as it comes back in. We chased each other, still green in the still blue, to the farthest edge of the field, all the way to the road, sometimes white buildings yellow in the sun, where trees are actual and take no holiday. Oily water dripped off the wet figures, their white skin bleached by the sun, the girders that clarified them, silhouettes in the shadows, overripe plums unpicked against some purple sky. They hung there before they fell or got picked. Summertime. Wet footprints evaporated. They ran down the gangplank. 2 fingers pinched their noses and their feet hung crazy in the white. Oily water dripped off the wet figures, their white skin bleached by the sun, unripe plums unpicked against some sky hung before they fell. Their wet footprints evaporated, silhouettes in the shadows of the green girders. They ran down the gangplank and jumped through the white air, legs crazy, heads about to burst down through the deep blue green. It is these late nights, she does seem to say, when we're together, it's like one wave of my hand. Someone told me she was stripping at the Glass Slipper on LaGrange between Tremont and Washington, saying goodbye to the dump truck, to the ice, an escape plan for an island, a way out of the shuttered room, saying goodbye to the place I love. So you wear grooves into the roads you take and forget for a second all the losses. So you seek them, need someone to speak for them. And then, so far back now, there was the boy she had helped find his way in. She too then, only a girl, tenderly. And if it had been some other, what then? Would it have been better, less baffling or dumb? Unsaid, best unsaid. No time ever really to tell it now. We deem our fortune as a tender babe carried off upon a bier, these spectral streets of trolley tracks in yesteryear, before an elder must attend to duty's prize, wrapped up in sentiment and protected by all of pride's tiny ornament. Anyways, these are a couple of translations. One is by the great, Andalusian poet Ibn Hazm. I would split open my heart with a knife, place you within and seal my wound, that you might dwell there and never inhabit another, until the resurrection and judgment day. Thus you would stay in my heart while I lived, and at my death you too would die in the entrails of my core, in the shadow of my tomb. Take that, Robert Creeley. This is a beautiful little poem by Cesare Pavese, translated from Italian. That was from Arabic. This is, you're like a land no one's uttered. You wait on nothing but the word, bursting deep below like fruit between the branches. There's a wind that reaches you. Things dry and doubly dead come with it and clutter you. Limbs and ancient words. You tremble in summer. 29th of October, 45. This is called Borrowed Time, and it begins with two quotes. "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand." Phyllis Wheatley, 1768. "It is most unpleasant work to steal bones from a grave, but what is the use? Someone has to do it." Franz Boas, June 6, 1888. This vast machine, its transient sweetness, expectant, the acts recovered when action ceases and ideas range. In due order we see the long-forgotten years long departed, all their cunning, all their strength, all their force more guarded. The owl seeks the caves of night and sadness, the unbounded regions of the mind, the land of errors which wanton tyranny with lawless hand had made, of wrongs and grievance unredressed, till nature leave the earth behind and place itself would rise and o'erspread the lands beneath, and learn to imitate her language there. Bright jewel, final wreck, fatal scepter, I strive to comprehend. Even the most commonplace objects seem to have some bearing on his destiny. The word lure, rebel for blues or stripers. The shift from fresh air to our political atmosphere, like the miner's canary. Not a grant of rights to, but a grant of rights from, a reservation of those not granted. As the snow melts before the sunbeam, a sketch in red crayon, the good name of our country, mica, volcanic glass, chalcedony, conch shells, shark teeth, copper. Like loosely gathered rope flung across open water from boat to boat, their memories, it can now be asserted, were authentic. Inhaling the smell of antiseptic and the stench of bedpans, listening to the mumblings of the dying, lying in bed, watching the beautiful boats. To a man, they said, they were disappointed. He couldn't remember if they had thrown pebbles or sand at each other. He saw her legs for a second, then again as they appeared under a chassis or through a door. He played with her on the swings across the street from the garage, the swings she flew off as she ran across the field telling him she'd beat him to the junkyard. He chased her over through the white fence, across the street, past the gas pumps and the air hose, trudging through the mud by the tin shacks whose doors rattled and swung in the wind, all the way to the yard filled with ancient smashed cars. She ran through them, opening doors, jumping across hoods and roofs, taunting him with sand or pebbles. Glass crunched and doors rattled as he landed running, sand hitting hollow fenders as it crumbled and spread to the ground. Past a tall fence, the field opened up to a lush green where the brook turned into a river. She jumped the fence and he chased her through the tall grass up a dirt road, through some woods in someone's yard where she fell to her back in the moist, thick growth and laughed at the sky. He stood at a distance and watched her until she sat up and looked at him. He walked over and sat next to her. They stayed there, watching each other and an old man stepping out of a shack to feed his chickens across the river. This is not paralysis by any means, but a kind of shock, the intention of being suspended or lying dormant, an adhesion, an appearance, something not completely palatable, like earth and dirt, the sweetness and the ash. Thin layers of silt and mud like quicksilver, joining and splitting plains lined by rows of stranded rocks, ancient shorelines jutting out into the uneven retreat of glacial ice, a kind of paradise of walnut or cedar or chestnut and stones to strike fire, fish and fur, oaken ship timbers, spars and masts of white pine, iron made from ore raked from the floors of coal bogs, the wilderness, a clear resemblance of this world, kernels of corn in the ear of a crow. Here were the flowers, prairies by the sea, the music as of old set like jewels in the green expanse. Unite yourselves with us in size and grandeur, seek the plentiful harbor, diligently collect history written in bone, examine these earliest artifacts, the first examples, the last vestiges, keep the continent from being blank, a place of imprisonment, dumb with the question, 4/7 of agricultural production taken over, corn carried on their backs 70 miles, one of the first desperate years as a gift long before anyone assumed we made a mistake in trying to bear witness, all this wonder, all this newness, the body wrapped in bark, the vessel polished with the tooth of a beaver, a gift from the departed smoked in a lobster claw, alders, lichen, bloodroot, and sumac. How we played, compelled and blind, our claim no emptier than questions of industry and idleness, survivors of our expectation, the law of the land recollected carefully in the hollow, the ambition to come to meaning before inquiry, the itinerant faces of defeated ancestors crop up again, adrift, think of their names like our hands, shadows at the bottom of the sea. Something like soul that you were witness to, that you remember by experience, by surfaces. Some great, great wound in the whole body, so unwieldy, so completely irretrievable, no one dares operate. Bleecker Street was a lane lined with blackberry bushes, and in the berry season was a great place for picnics from far and near. It was also a good region for snipe shooting and also for hunting rabbits. But by now you would have hardly recognized the place, for the city had grown up into it. How long ago we walked unwinding the jewels there on the meadow of yellow flowers, on the meadow of blue flowers, under the growing corn we used to sit, the blue flowers woven over the yellow ones, the place which is called black spot with life, the place which is called blue spot with life, the white circle in the sand, this gold, the emblems, these waters claim your boat, the irises you grasp, a deceit you cannot name now, this tension shattering the sacred places, the slaughter we live by, trying to remember as rocks are ground to powder and made into blocks. The ghost of the pain is the circle of wild horses. The price of freedom isn't cheap, the sergeant said. People could at least invest a little time. A dream, muffled and dumb, memories of the hanging gardens, the bird part prophecy, part longing, the waters sure, the stones and trees insensible, their leaves of green, of red, of yellow things long since fled, the hunter and the deer, the posture that we give the dead, a painted bowl, arrows with a head of stone, painted chief and painted spear, This charm my garments, the city where I hope to dwell, like trash, not silk, the streets transparent gold, imprisoned lightning, silent lips astride the marketplace of war, where death and glory meet ancient rage and old despair, their beauty and their strength, their parts, their ports, their pomp. Call back some time now past the fatal rhythm of their tread, your own rehearsal, revisiting the congregation like wasted strangers, as if they were alive without record in their own language, speaking some simple word of treasure next time when all of these are gone. When I thought of all this paraphernalia of American democracy behind me, and the project of liberty before me, slavery with its democratic whips, its Republican chains, its evangelical bloodhounds, experienced in the knowledge, punctually measuring, let them feed on this ground, observant of these heavenly lights, like an unaccustomed ghost that starts surprised to stumble over graves, the names of people once numerous. A vessel carried away a great number of our surprised Indians in the times of our wars to sell them for slaves, but the nations whither she went would not buy them. Finally, she left them at Tangier. There they may be, so many as live or are born there. An Englishman, a mason, came thence to Boston. He told me they desired I would use some means for their return home. I know not what to do in it. But now it is in my heart to move your honors, so to mediate, that they may have leave to go home, either from thence hither or from thence to England, and so get home. Do not feel badly because you have lost sight of this daylight. No matter how hard I try, nothing happens today to you alone. Those who have reached a place where death stands waiting have not pointed out a way to circumvent it. I myself grieve when I look back there into the past. It is enough to make anyone ponder. Now, here at last, we are ready to end this. When you start to leave, you must not think back with regret. You always return, garment of brightness, wilderness in the midst of plenty. Farewell, bright moment, lingering sun. This heart will never awaken. This is called Harry, War Poem number 1. It's 2:23 on February 16th, and I'm watching a bleached blonde out my window use a red ribbon to tie up, crouching in the doorway of the bank across the street. The doorway of the bank that Harry usually lives in with his shopping cart. In the window on the floor right above her, I can see heads bob and weave through their high-tech exercise machines. Below, she's asking her lookout for more as she takes a deep drag on her cigarette. It's not my problem, he says, as she heaves, retching in the direction of Harry's stuff piled on the sidewalk. And lookout number 2 comes down from the other end of the block. I need it for me, he says. But they talk a few minutes, and he hands her the bag, telling her to take a little. She turns back into the doorway to get ready, her shadow against the door, her arm upright and visible as a couple walk their dog right past, ignoring her fist clenched. She's ready to look for a vein, the sun melting, the snow left on the sidewalk, an old lady slowly walking toward the avenue, a guy with a cell phone coming the other way, the lookout pacing, her fist still clenched, tighter now. The lookout says, your grandmother's coming up the block from the middle of the street now, scoping out more territory. The other guy comes back down as she fights her way up, black and white, parka, pink shirt with a white stripe across it. The economy's changed. Again, our next door neighbors seem to be dealing, and teams of delivery boys are back out in droves. She staggers up the block with one of the kids. The rooming houses emptied out and bought with laundered drug money just got sold again. The neighbors leave Harry a taste every now and then. You know I blew all my money on you, you selfish cunt. Give me my fucking lighter, the lookout says. Watch it as she almost gets hit by a car weaving across the street. Give me my fucking lighter. I'm getting it out, she says, going back into a crouch in the doorway, in Harry's doorway, and the lookout throws the lighter back at her across against the wall, getting her leg ready this time. Harry used to live in a house on the block, but now he lives in the doorway when he can. I see her silver hood, the fake fur collar pulled up over her head as she adjusts the parka to cover up while she's tying up again. It's getting cloudy. By now she's almost still in her crouch, rocking slightly as a girl in hijab walks by on her way home from school. It's already 3:01, and the lookout man is back, subdued and waiting. Now he knows she's really someplace else, so he lets her get there before she wraps the ribbon back up and sticks it in her pocket, heaving again, holding her mouth with her head forward as she leans into the doorway from her crouch, then gets up slowly, limping and holding her head. I can see how thin she is now, emaciated actually, but pretty. At 3:05, she goes in peace, and at 3:17, a bank guard shows up and lights a cigarette in the doorway, takes out a tissue to blow his nose and tosses it in the heap of scrap and old clothes that Harry had gathered and piled up against the wall of the bank. At 5, I see her and the lookout again close up. She's just skin and bones, and he gets her across the street first as they weave after each other, heading into the Rite Aid to boost some stuff. And I know about all the poets who couldn't find words to describe how beautiful a day it was before the war started, but I don't give a fuck about that because I'm telling you, it was already overcast.